Jaya Giridharadhari, Jaya Giridharadhari, Jaya Yashodanandana, Jaya Rajajanaranjana, Jaya Yashodanandana, Jaya Rajajanaranjana, Jaya Yashodanandana, Jaya Rajajanaranjana, Jaya Yamuna Tirapanachari, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Yamuna Tirapanachari, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol. Grantaraj में Bhagavad Gita Zaris की, Srila Prabhupada की. So, you can all repeat after me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Sorry, I just came out cool. Okay, so our discussions today are from chapter 1, and an important theme in this section of verses is the blowing of the conch shells. So it's nice today we started the program at Aarti, so we've all heard this divine sound, and it features very prominently, and it carries a very important message, because like we said the previous time, this whole sequence is being conveyed to the blind king Dhritarashtra, and it's being carried through his secretary Sanjaya, who has the ability to see the events as they are happening, even though he's not there. So within his heart, he's able to witness what's going on. So he's trying to convey what he's seeing, along with what he also wants Dhritarashtra to understand about what's going to happen. So there's a lot of meaning in the words that he's speaking. So text 11. Julie Math, do you want to try reading the Sanskrit? You can try. It's not. It's no right or wrong. So verse 11. It's page 40 of my Bhagavad Gita.
75 is that one, page 75.
Okay, the other book is 75. Oh, it's on the phone. We've sent the link on your phones as well.
Text 11 you say?
Text 11 of chapter 1.
Hare Krishna everybody.
Hare Krishna.
Associate Anubhav Sosas from Krishna Badams Ka Asas Gatasan Agatusam Ska Nanus Sokhanti Parat.
Text 11 of chapter 1.
Yeah, text 11.
Of chapter 1.
Okay. It's another one.
No worries. Yeah, chapter 1, text 11.
The one? Same one. Okay, that's one.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Page.
No worries.
Ayanesu ha sarvasu yatha balam avasteta vismam ivavikas sarvam babartha sarvatma.
Good. Translation, Mataji?
You want the... Okay.
Yeah,
All of you must now give full support to Grandfather Visma as you stand at your respective strategic points of entrance into the phalanx of the army.
Good. Thank you, Mataji.
Okay.
So, the previous verse ended with Duryodhana saying to his teacher, right? He was confronting his teacher, and Sanjaya was relaying this to the blind king Dhritarashtra. So, basically what he was saying is, Duryodhana, Bhishma, he's actually our strongest asset. Right? He is actually taking charge of our whole army. And so he has a lot of faith in Bhishma's capabilities over the capabilities of the equivalent on the other side, which is Bhima. Bhima is obviously a lot younger than Bhishma, right? Bhishma is like a grandfather to him. Not just in age, but also expertise. So Duryodhana had said, I think that our army is going to be better protected by Bhishma, and the other side comparatively not so much. So even though this is the case, he then, Prabhupada points out in the purport, calculates that other people are going to feel a little miffed that Bhishma is being praised and not them. So Prabhupada says, after praising the prowess of Bhishma, Duryodhana, he further considered that others might think that they had been considered less important. So in his usual diplomatic way, tried to adjust the situation. So he's saying, Bhishma is our most important warrior, but all of you must give support. You're all at respective strategic points. You're all at important places. It's not just where Bhishma is. You all need to give him support, because one man doesn't fight a battle on his own, right? But Prabhupada says it's just his diplomacy. So that he's trying to make, he's not trying to make everybody feel better in a good way. It's just him trying to cover all his bases as usual. And he thought he had done that by having Bhishma, who was undoubtedly the greatest hero, but he was an old man. And that but is very important, because this is what happens when you put your faith, or you put your trust, yes, in any mortal. We get old, we get diseased, we die. No one is fallible. And it's an important word that Arjuna is going to use. We might discuss in the next section. That Krishna, in comparison, is infallible. Krishna never lets anyone down. But we will let people down, even if we have the best intentions, because we fall victim to these things that we can't change. Right? Disease, old age, death. In addition, there's a few other disqualifications that Bhishma had that we all share in. One is being pointed out here, that Bhishma might become engaged in the fight and the enemy might take advantage of his full engagement. We have imperfect senses. Our senses can only focus on one thing in front of us at a time, isn't it? We don't have, as they say, eyes behind, in the back of our heads. So that's the first defect of the conditioned soul. There's 4 defects. That our senses are imperfect. Right? They let us down. Sometimes you think you saw something, you didn't. You think you heard something, you didn't. Right? Bhishma's a man. He could make these mistakes. The other, it's demonstrating his senses. But the other mistake, the hugest mistake that he actually made that's going to cause his death here is in relation to a princess named Amba. How many of you know the history of Amba? Okay. So Bhishma, we remember from the previous discussion, he is a lifelong celibate because his father wanted to marry another woman, another young woman, and because he had a claim to the throne, he had to renounce it because the father of that woman, Satyavati, the father wanted that her sons would be king. Right? As Prabhupada says, it's the law of primogeniture, something like that, sorry, where the eldest son inherits the throne. So already Bhishma was the eldest son of the king, Shantanu, by his first consort, Ganga Devi. So he wanted to marry this woman, Shantanu wanted to marry this woman so much that Bhishma, being a very dutiful son, he renounced his claim to the throne. Right? He was like, her sons can become king, it's okay, as long as you're happy. Right? It's a very noble thing to do. And then the very clever future father-in-law, he said, you may renounce your throne, but what about your children? If your children come and lay claim, then what's going to happen to my daughter's children? Right? So we're following up to now, it's making sense. So then Bhishma, he was then known as Devavrata. He takes an astonishing vow, at least astonishing in terms of the consequences. He says, then I will never get married. I will never have children. And because of that, his father was so pleased, he gave him the benediction. You will die whenever you want to. That's why the sequence of events plays out the way he dies. So in the interim, right, he's a very powerful warrior, and Satyavati has 2 sons, right, and they're going to become princes, and they need to have sons to continue the line, right? Bhishma can't do anything about that because he took the vow not to get married. So Bhishma takes it upon himself to find wives for these 2 boys, just 2 youngsters, and he kidnaps 3 princesses. I think it's from the kingdom of Kashi, because that was the way it was in those days, right? The princesses, the alliances, we discussed how important the alliances were with kingdoms. So when a princess of a kingdom is very powerful, when she came up to get married, then people were very interested. She's very qualified, very beautiful, something about her. Because everyone wants to be aligned to a powerful family. Marriage alliances were very important. So Bhishma kidnapped 3 princesses. The problem was, the 3rd princess, or some say the first because she was the eldest. The 3 princesses were Amba, Ambika, and Ambalika. Amba had already chosen her husband, the king of Kashi. Sorry, she wasn't from Kashi. She had chosen the king of Kashi to be her husband already. So choice was also allowed as well in these situations. Bhishma said, okay, fine, you can go. You can go to him. But now Bhishma had already kidnapped her. The rules about these things were very strict in those days. So it was almost like she belonged to someone else. So King of Kashi said, I can't marry you now. Right? It would be an indictment on him. Okay? You took a woman back after somebody else. Tainted her. Or at least as they thought of it. Even though something like that had not really happened. Anyway, now Amba is in a bit of a plight, so she goes back to Bhishma. Okay, you have to marry me because he doesn't want to. He can't marry me now. And Bhishma was like, I can't. I took a vow. So she was furious, right? This is a huge mess up that's going to impact her whole life because now nobody wants to marry her. What can she do? So she actually tried many avenues to try and get Bhishma to marry her, or at least in the end, she wanted him killed. She wanted him punished eventually for ruining her life when he wouldn't marry her. She even approached Lord Parashuram. Lord Parashuram even fought with him and could not make him agree, or could not kill him either. So she actually, she prayed, if I remember correctly, to Lord Shiva. She performed a lot of penance, and he gave her the benediction actually that she could be the instrument of Bhishma's death. He couldn't kill Bhishma, but she could be the instrument. She was very satisfied with that. So eventually what happened was, when she got that benediction, she killed herself because all she wanted was to get revenge on him. So when she got the blessing that she could be the cause of his death in her next life, she was like, okay, fine, there's nothing else for me to live for now. So this is you could say it was a terrible mistake on his part, right? So two failings of a human being already demonstrated: imperfect senses, and he made a mistake. He made a huge mistake that ruined her life. So eventually, she was reborn. She was reborn into the family of Draupadi. Let me remember that Draupadi was already born to get to be part of getting revenge for her father Drupad. Her brother was born to kill Drona. Now she has another brother who's born to kill Bhishma, or at least it seemed to be a brother. So what happened was, initially this personality, very unusual personality, Shikandi, was born as a female. But the priest actually told the family that he's going to be a male eventually. He's just a female for now. This is his destiny. So interestingly, they raised this person to be a boy, but he was still a girl by the time his marriage ceremony was going to take place, and it was a princess coming to marry her. So this is part of the destiny. So eventually, she left, she went crying to the forest. She's going to cause so much trouble to her family. And there was a yaksha. Yaksha is a supernatural being. Right? They can do unusual things. Yakshas have connections with earth. They reside in the realm just outside the terrestrial earth, but in the atmosphere. So they have contact with us. These are some of the unusual beings that people can contact, like spirits, things like that. They exist in the atmosphere. So these were the times that these personalities could actually communicate with them. And you could say others in this day and age may have this extrasensory perception of them, but they could communicate. So she was crying, she was very upset. So the yaksha asked her what's wrong, and she's like, well, this is the problem. I have to turn into a man somehow, and I'm not sure how that's going to happen, but this is what's supposed to happen. Right? So the yaksha actually agreed to exchange the gender with her, so that she would take his male form or become male, and he would become female. So this solved her problem for now. Only the yaksha was now a female. So she met the superior, who was very upset about what had happened, but then said that, okay, when this person dies, you'll get your gender back. Because remember, they have very long lifespans, so it's only going to be a short time. When Shikandi dies, you'll get to be a male again. Okay, so they sorted that part out. So Shikandi goes back to the capital, very happy. He's a he now, so he can get married to the princess, and he can fulfill his part of destiny. Because he has been born to kill Bhishma. Bhishma will never fight a woman, nor will Bhishma fight a man who was a woman. So on this battle, the only person who can actually stand up to him in terms of strength is Arjuna. So Arjuna fights behind Shikandi. Shikandi fights in front of Arjuna. Bhishma can't aim at Shikandi. This is how Arjuna is able to land the arrows that will kill Bhishma. Is that making sense? It's pretty amazing. So you pay for your mistakes, right? Effectively, that's a problem again with putting your trust in a human being, right? Imperfect sense is mistakes. What's the other thing? Sure to be an illusion. Bhishma was illusioned. He took the wrong side, right? He took the wrong side. He took the side of those who were against Dharma. And in that illusion, he tolerated a woman being humiliated in an assembly like that, right? You cannot get worse than that. Every man there, especially Bhishma as the elder of the family, had a duty to...
But why did he feel obligated to take the side of...
It's honor. It's honor. because you are living, it's like you're living off them. You're in the palace, you're eating their food.
Yeah.
You cannot turn against them now, even if it's the side of right. There's a code of honor that warriors must abide by. It's another, we're going to come to another point. So it was illusion and it was cheating. Okay, we'll come to cheating. But basically, the problem with human beings, us as human beings, any creature actually, is that we don't know what is the absolute good. We bring this up very often. We don't know what's good for everybody all the time in all situations. We only know what is relative to us.
Yeah.
So what's relative to Bhishma is what he did. But at the absolute level, he should never have stood silent and watched something like that happen. But that's again the problem with us as human beings. We don't have that breadth of vision. We don't know. We can't judge what's absolute good. Therefore, we depend on the eyes of scripture. We depend on the spiritual master. We depend on contemplation. We depend on the super soul to guide us from within when we're spiritually advanced. Because we cannot make the right decisions in every situation. Right? We will always go wrong in some way or the other. So this is why we have to depend on the superior authority, those who see with transcendental vision. Right? That's the level of absolute good. So Bhishma, he was in illusion over these things and therefore making, we could say, all the wrong moves. And then the fourth defect of a human or of a being, right, a being who's in the material plane, is that we cheat. We cheat, right? We cheat ourselves and we cheat others. So there's so many ways we can see that here, right? In particular, of course, him by standing with the side of the Kauravas and all the evil things that they were doing, thinking that he could just carry on like that and everything was going to be okay. It's almost like he was cheating the Lord, even though he was a devotee of the Lord. And eventually, Duryodhana was afraid he was going to cheat by being soft on the Pandavas.
Yeah.
That was a big concern of Duryodhana. We discussed this last time. He was worried that Bhishma was going to be soft and Drona were going to be soft. So you can't trust a human being. You can't. You can only trust and put your faith in the Supreme Lord who is infallible. Doesn't fall into these four defects. Will not let you down. So then Prabhupada makes the point again, because this is actually the point we said that made Krishna intervene in everything, that Draupadi was insulted. He says that Bhishma and Drona had stood quiet. This was like a seminal moment in this whole saga, that they stood quiet at such an important juncture. Therefore, as much as they have very spiritual natures, because they're devotees of Krishna, but even with their spiritual natures, Duryodhana was confident that they would stand up for him now and do the wrong thing, right? Fight against God, their Lord, because they had not spoken up when Draupadi was being insulted. That should have been the moment. That should have been the moment. Because as Vaishnavas, we should not tolerate such things. It doesn't mean we become martyrs for the cause, because our lives matter for devotional service. But we should speak up when these things happen, right? Particularly when the weaker members, we already discussed. So when it comes to Dharma, women, children, the elderly, brahmanas, the cows, they must be protected in all circumstances. If someone is being abusive towards them, we must speak up, right? Otherwise, unfortunately, we'll be counted against the aggressors. If it can happen to Bhishma and Drona, we can also be punished by the Lord. We must remember that. Okay, so text 12. You want to try, Mataji?
Tasye Sanjayan Harsam Kuru Vriddha Pitamaha Simha Nadam Vina Dayocha Sankam Dadmao Pratapavan.
Good. Translation?
Then Bhishma, the great valiant grandsire of the Kuru dynasty, the grandfather of the fighters, blew his conch shell very loudly, making it sound like a roar of a lion, giving Duryodhana joy.
So this is the first mention of the conch shell. Right? So in the Sanskrit, we'll see the word for it, Shankham, right, is the Sanskrit word for conch shell. So this name, Shankham, Shankha, it came from the name of a demon named Shankasura. He is said to be the one that the conch shell appeared from, but we must understand that these things these transcendental implements, they are eternally belonging to the Lord. Right? They don't come into existence because it was the form of a demon or somebody gave it to the Lord. It may appear like that in the past time, but these are not only eternally existing with Him, it's eternally available to Him whenever He needs it. Because it is Him, essentially, in a different form. We'll give you an example. Nobody gave Lord Chaitanya a chakra, but when Lord Chaitanya wanted the chakra, it came. Or He came. Sudarshan is a He. Right? He came. So there's this, the history that Agni actually gave the chakra to Krishna, and people take that to be literal, that it came from Agni. It didn't come from Agni. The chakra is always the Lord's weapon, and He's always at His side. But in the past time, Agni received the chakra to give to the Lord. So in the same way, at the beginning of time, the Shank, or the beginning of material time, the Shank makes its appearance in the universe from the churning of the milk ocean. Right? So it's a very important pastime, because a lot of histories come from there, from this churning. So we'll discuss this pastime maybe in the context of, it's a very long pastime and we're going to run short of time. So we'll discuss it even afterwards if someone's interested. But at least for now, this churning of the milk ocean was done by the gods on one side, the Devatas, and the demons on the other side. And when they were churning, many divine things came out of this ocean. One of them was Lakshmi Devi. Right? Lakshmi Devi is the consort of Lord Vishnu. And so therefore you would see one of her epithets is daughter of the milk ocean, right? Because she came out of the milk ocean. So then she was accepted by the Lord as his wife, and the Shank also came out of the ocean. Right? So the Lord accepted that as his weapon. And it says that when he blows it, the sound that comes out is actually his sound, because he is the actual sound of Om. So that sound comes out. And that's why the sound is so powerful, and why it commences all kinds of worship and auspicious occasions. Because it drives away all the enemies of the Lord. It is the Lord in sound. So it's able to purify the atmosphere for the worship to begin. It drives away all the evil, but it also drives away the adharmic elements, the sound of Dharma. So therefore it's the right way to begin any battle, because the battles, at least in those days, we can't speak of today, the motives are very, very questionable. But the battles of those days were fought over Dharma, right? Establishing Dharma. So the Shank was the right thing to begin the battle, right? Because it would ensure that all adharmic elements were going to be dispelled. Therefore, the sound, Srila Prabhupada says here, indirectly by the symbolism of the conch shell, he informed his depressed grandson Duryodhana that he had no chance of victory. Because the whole symbolism is to drive out the adharma, and that's Duryodhana. The sound is indicating that they were going to lose. They were on the side of adharma. So even though Bhishma is called here a great valiant, a lion, Simha Nadhan. Simha is lion. He was roaring like a lion, right? Very powerful sound. Still, no matter how powerful he was, like Mataji pointed out the previous time, he is on the side against the Supreme Lord. No power, even if he was powerful or roaring like 10,000 lions, was ever going to be able to overcome the other side, just because the Supreme Lord was on it. So, the importance though for Duryodhana was that Bhishma was telling him that, listen, even though I actually know we're going to lose in this, I'm going to give it a good fight. So Prabhupada makes a point here in the purport that he was doing it to actually encourage Duryodhana. But as devotees, we can see it in another way. It's a little esoteric way. So Srila Prabhupada describes in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, in the chapters where Bhishma Dev is passing away, that Bhishma Dev and Krishna had a very interesting relationship. Because the Lord has relationships with all his devotees, and those relationships are in love, even if it's a bit hard to understand. So when the Lord wants to fight, he fights with his devotees. Right? Because they are on that absolute level like him. An ordinary opponent, he's not going to fight that person. He's going to fight his devotees. It sounds very unusual. But his devotees on a level worthy to be an opponent of him. So therefore we remember the history of how Ravan, Hiranyakashipu, how they came to this world. It was through them being cursed. That's another long pastime, Jai. So there Prabhupada explains very extensively in that third canto that it had to be, when the Lord wanted to fight, it had to be his devotees, that some pretext was there, the curse. But really it was so that they could give the Lord a good fight, and that's exactly what happened. Actually, even with, sorry, I was thinking about another pastime. But with Bhishma, it was the same story. Bhishma was roaring like a lion because he was going to give Krishna a good fight. Not for the sake, he's not fighting for the sake of pleasing his nephew, Duryodhana. He's fighting for the pleasure of the Lord. Both of them wanted this. The Lord wanted to finally, have a fight with his chivalrous devotee Bhishma. Bhishma is such a powerful warrior, the most powerful warrior we said at the time. And finally he was going to get to demonstrate all this power to his Lord. It was his offering. So Prabhupada says in the Bhagavatam, it's very beautiful, that we offer flowers, we're going to offer flowers. Bhishma offers arrows. But the Lord takes them in the same way, because this is a relationship that he has with this devotee in particular. His love is shown by his fighting skill, how he demonstrates that for the Lord. So it's a very exalted level. Nobody here must meditate on becoming an enemy of the Lord. Right? It's a very different circumstance. And either way, our relationships with the Lord become evident much further on in our devotional service. Safe to say that this is how wonderful it is, that when someone does have this desire to exchange some rasa, some taste with the Lord, this taste even of fighting, of chivalry, is catered for by him. And also for the Lord, because every propensity we have is also there with, people who have this, maybe not anyone here, but people who have this impetus to maybe do wrestling and things like that. You want a good fight. People do, they wrestle with their family and things like that. Now you don't want to do harm to somebody, but here with the Lord and his devotees, no holds barred. They can harm each other as much as they want. It's not, the Lord doesn't get harmed, and the person who's fighting against him, they're just going to get some transcendental form, right? Like Bhishma, after he died, he took on his spiritual form. So it goes like that. There's no loss, but they get that good fight that they. So if we have that inclination, it's because it comes from God. All inclinations that we have come from God, but they exist in him in its pure form. In us, it's a perverted form. Of course, when we purify it by devotional service, then it becomes a pure form. But until then, right, it's described as a perverted form. Okay. Matri, 13. Yeah, text 13. Thank you. Thank you.
After that, the functional drums, bugles, trumpets, and horns were all suddenly sounded, and the combined sound was tumultuous.
Okay, so this is the beginning, right? There's a lot of other instruments that are part of war, right? We know even in Western war there's these bands, these marching bands that are part of the army. So there were also many other instruments that were sounded. And now it's the turn of Krishna and Arjuna. They're starting the battle cry, we could say, from the side of the Pandavas. Text 14.
Tata sevta hela yukte mahati sandena stita madhave Pandavas cheva divya sankau prada atu.
Translation.
On the other side, both Lord Krishna and Arjuna, stationed on a great chariot drawn by white horses, sounded their transcendental conch shells.
So it's a very important word that Prabhupada said. Prabhupada highlights. He says transcendental conch shells. So we look at the Sanskrit. It is divyal. Divya is derived from Divya, is transcendental. And Prabhupada says that the conch shell blown by Bhishma was not transcendental, it was ordinary. And just like Bhishma's abilities, it may be very great, but it's ordinary. It's not transcendental. But everything about Krishna is extraordinary, from his conch shell to his devotees, like Arjuna. And because of that extraordinary ability, Prabhupada says, the sound indicated that there was no hope of victory for the other side. Just like that. Whatever they had, the other side, the side of the Kauravas, they had every other advantage. They didn't have Krishna. There was no opportunity. So what else is associated with the devotee of the Lord? Well, when you have Krishna, you also have his consort, Goddess of Fortune. Goddess of Fortune is also known as Jai Shri, Goddess of Victory. Right? So victory is always on the side of the Supreme Lord, make no mistake, however it may seem externally. So she was there. And for devotees, this is an important point. She's not just the Goddess of Fortune in terms of money. When you take shelter of the Lord, your spiritual fortune is assured. And that nobody can guarantee. Eternity is not promised to anyone. We discussed this as well the last time. Nobody knows where they're going. But when you take shelter of the Supreme Lord, your good fortune is assured even beyond. Right? You can rest in that comfort. Later on as well, it'll mention how Hanuman is also present in the flag of Arjuna. So on the cover of previous edition, there was a picture of Arjuna's flag. Hanuman was on his flag. So he wasn't just on the flag, he was there. And it actually, it's interesting because he played a role in the war. He would roar and he would frighten the other side. Because his expansion, Bhima is related to Hanuman. It said that they're both expansions of the wind god. So he was helping Bhima in this battle. So this is what happens when the Lord is on your side. Everybody helps. Right? Everyone across the universe helps. You actually don't know who's helping you, because everybody is helping you in your service to Him. Right? Even all the devatas, even all the gods. Sometimes people get a bit nervous. Okay, if we're only dedicating ourselves to Krishna, will the other gods get upset? They're going to help you more, right? Because they're pleased that you're dedicating yourself to their Lord. So then, Prabhupada also mentions, just for anyone who likes details, that the chariot had been donated by Agni. Agni is known as the fire god. Oh, he is the fire god, sorry. So therefore, this chariot was it's capable of conquering all sides, because isn't fire so all-consuming? When a forest fire takes up, nothing can stop it. Right? So this is like this chariot, it's going to consume everything. Right? So the symbolisms here, they're interesting, but they're not only figurative, they are literal. They are literal because they will prove true. Because exactly what happened in this battle was that everyone was consumed. It was literally like a fire. There was only about 7 or 8 people left afterwards. And there was probably millions of soldiers. I think they said 18 million, but there was millions of soldiers. Okay. Next verse, text 15.
Lord Krishna blew his conch shell, called Arjuna. Arjuna blew his, the Devadatta, and Bhima, the voracious eater and performer of Herculean tasks, blew his terrific conch shell, called Thunder.
Thank you. So this is actually the past that distracted me. I was thinking, when am I going to mention this? Because I only told you the first part of the Panchajanya, the conch shell, the shank. There's a few pastimes connected. So the conch shell, Panchajanya, appeared from the churning of the milk ocean. But then, how the conch shell appears in other pastimes is that, because I mentioned Shankashura, so at the beginning of time, when the conch shell appeared in the pastime of Lord Matsya, it was through the Shankashura. So this demon he had stolen the Vedas, and he went and hid in the primordial waters. So he was in the shape of, or his external body appeared to be in the shape of this conch shell. Now it's transcendental, so we understand it had appeared in that way for the Lord, but this demon actually lived in it as it was his shell. So Lord Matsya, the Lord's fish incarnation, this was one of the 2 times he appeared. Lord Varahadev appeared twice, he also appears twice. And he killed that demon and he took that shank. So therefore, when he blew the conch, the Vedas came out. So the sound that the conch, we said it's the Om, it's also the Vedas, because the Vedas is actually the explanation of Om. Right? The whole Vedas. They're all connected because originally the sound comes from the sound of Krishna's flute, and the breath of the Lord is transcendental. That sound is the Om. The Om is expanded as the Gayatri through Brahma. The Gayatri is expanded as the Vedas. So everything is connected. They're all explanations of the same thing. The transcendental sound, which is the transcendental person, Krishna. That's what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. By all the Vedas, I am to be known. Because it comes from him and it's an explanation of him. How we need to know him so we can attain him. So when Lord Matsya Dev killed this demon, Shankashura, then we said this conch got the name Shank. But it had always been existing as Panchajanya, right? The Lord's eternal conch shell. Just that now we have a name for it here in this world, right? But the Lord's specific conch shell is named Panchajanya. So it had arisen out of the milk ocean for Lord Vishnu. And then in Krishna's manifest pastimes, it appeared in a different way. This time it was through the Lord rescuing his teacher's son. So the Lord took that role of a child and he was educated by, anyone remember the name of his teacher?
That's not something with V, yeah?
That was maybe Lord Ram. Vashishta was Lord Ram. Sandipani Muni. I know you all,
Yes.
yeah. Okay, you want to get it now. Yes.
Sandipani.
So Lord Krishna went to learn under a teacher just like we do, to set the example. And the Lord is the ultimate and the originator of Dharma, and he is also the ultimate person to execute Dharma. Okay, so because he does it the best. So when his time had completed at the Gurukul, Gurukul is the name of school, a school in Sanskrit. Yeah. So he asked his teacher, what dakshin can I give you? Right? The word dakshin is a fee or a offering to a guru. Dakshin, a teacher, someone who has given you some spiritual knowledge, education. So Krishna asked him that. And he asked something that only Krishna could give, which demonstrates again that Krishna is not an ordinary person. And all of these pastimes are there to bring this to our attention. So he asked him to bring back his dead son. So I didn't like when I came across the way these histories are being told now. It's said that they're making it seem like the son was just kidnapped by a demon and Krishna went and just killed the demon. Like, almost like how an ordinary person does things. That's not how this pastime happened. This pastime happened according to Srimad Bhagavatam and Srila Prabhupada, our ultimate authority, that the son was killed. He was already in the abode of death. And that's not somewhere that anyone else can go to. No ordinary person can go there, right? Because death does not bow down before anybody besides God. So Krishna went to the shore of the ocean because the teacher, Sandipani Muni, explained that this boy had been lost when he went to the sea. So Krishna went there and he demanded that the ocean give back this boy. Now obviously he was also acting as an ordinary person, but no ordinary person is 1 minute going to ask the ocean, right, to do something, and the ocean just comes there reverentially and okay. But still, he's giving all these personalities an opportunity to play their part. So the ocean says, actually, it's not me. There's a demon in a conch shell, and he's got this boy. He must have eaten him up and now he's in the conch, so please, you can go find him. And when Krishna went there, he killed the demon and he got his Panchajanya, and his conch. Again, appearing in this past life, but always with the Lord. Understanding that the child was not there, he went to the abode of death, who now was summoned by the blowing of the conch. So the god of death comes and he returns this boy. He got his opportunity to get darshan of the Lord. Just like Varuna once kidnapped Krishna's father, so he got an opportunity to see the Lord. And how later on we'll read in in the Srimad Bhagavatam that that Mahavishnu actually he allows a Brahman's sons to be killed, right, or seemingly to die, so that he would create some extraordinary circumstances, so he would get to see Krishna and Arjuna. They all want to have this darshan that we get all the time. So, what Sanjaya is actually doing here is he's invoking these various names to carry that hidden meaning to Dhritarashtra. That there's Krishna blowing his eternal sound of victory, Panchajanya, sound of victory. It's all lost, forget about it. But in addition, he's like Arjuna is blowing his. But he calls Arjuna Dhananjay. Dhananjay is the name of Arjuna because he once accumulated great wealth for his brother when his brother needed it for religious purposes. Meaning that he has the ability to get this kingdom back on his own. He'll get it back for his brother, you can be sure of that. And he calls Bhima, he doesn't call him Bhima. Bhima Karma, who performs Herculean tasks. His tasks are not ordinary. And one extraordinary thing that he has promised to do is kill your 100 sons himself, single-handedly. He's going to do it. He does Herculean tasks, he's going to do it. Vrikodara, the voracious eater, he's going to consume your family. So it's powerful, right? These words are powerful. This Sanskrit is very, Prabhupada always says, very beautiful language because there's so much that's actually said in a few words. Even calling Krishna, he calls Krishna Rishikesho, Panjayanam Rishikesho, because he is the Lord and owner of all senses. We claim things in this world, but nothing is ours. People this side of the Kauravas, they claim this kingdom, they claimed all kinds of things. It's not theirs. The right way to utilize what we have is to allow Krishna to direct us to use it in the right way. That superior guidance we were talking about, right? The absolute good. So in the same way, Arjuna is going to let Krishna guide his senses. Rishikesh. He's going to give up his protests against fighting and he's going to tell Krishna, okay, you tell me what to do. That's the correct thing. And therefore, Prabhupada says in this purport that these senses must be directed by the Lord. Here on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, the Lord directly controls the transcendental senses of Arjuna, and thus his particular name of Rishikesh. And so victory is assured. Whether it's us in our ordinary battles to control our senses, right? Everybody has that. The Lord will give us the strength to do so when we're sincere, right? To control the tongue in its speaking and its eating. Speaking is as bad sometimes as eating, right? What we see, what we hear, right? The Lord will give us that guidance when we're sincere. If we say we want to do it, but we're allowing the senses, that's not sincerity. So the sincerity is, I really am trying, it's not easy, please help me. He'll understand, he will help us, right? We want him to direct our senses. He has other names as well according to his different activities, Prabhupada says. His name is Madhusudan because he killed the demon Madhu. His name is Govinda because he gives pleasure to the cows and senses. His name is Vasudev because he appeared as the son of Vasudev. Okay. So that's a very interesting thing. So in the Sanskrit in the past, you would get you would get a name according to the name of your father. So you had your own name, but you could also be referred to by this name. Right? So in this day and age, we all know, we all get names, right? Somebody's parents call them Sweetie, somebody else is called Buddy. Okay, we all know, right? These names had meanings, right? So Arjuna is called many times Partha because his mother's name was Prita, but that was one of her names. Her other name was Kunti, right, related to her father Kunti Boja. So therefore Arjuna is called Kaunteya, right, as the son of Kunti. My father's name was Rohan. I could be called Rohini. My brother could be called Rohineya. Right? So it's like that. So the names can be inferred from it. So Krishna himself, he appeared as the son of Vasudev. So Vasudev is a name of Krishna. So the second letter A is carried, the sound is carried longer. It makes it a whole new different name. Because in Sanskrit, the vowels are not, you don't just have like a single sound. In English, it's one of the things that makes English so imperfect, that the one letter will carry all the sounds. But in Sanskrit, there's different letters. So the A that's carried longer is not the same as a short A. So ah is not the same as ah. We write it like that in English because English doesn't have a way of expressing these things. But in Sanskrit, they have their own letters. Ah has its own letter, ah has its own letter. So therefore in Sanskrit it makes a lot of sense when you see it like that, because then you'll see that that is actually a very different word. Vasudev is different from Vasudev. I hope that makes sense. And then he also has the name of Devaki Nandan. He accepted Devaki as his mother. His name is Yashoda Nandan because he awarded his childhood pastimes to Yashoda at Vrindavan. His name is Partha Sarathi. Sarathi is chariot driver. We just said Partha is Arjuna because he worked as a chariot of his friend Arjuna. So just in the same way, Arjuna has different names. Dhananjay as the winner of wealth, and Vrikodar for Bhima, because the Lord's associates also have these different names. In comparison though, the names of the Lord are unlimited because his activities are unlimited. And it's very important that we understand this, because we also understand that Krishna is a person. God is a person. He's not abstract. He's not just light. He can have a form of light if you want, but his ultimate, unlimited form is of a person. And he can do anything in his unlimited aspects. And therefore he has unlimited names, which are as powerful as his self, his forms, and his activities are as transcendental as his names. Name, form, quality, and pastime. Nama, Rupa, Guna. Nama, Rupa, Guna. Names, form, Lila. Nama, Rupa, Guna, Lila. Right? All are transcendental. A devotee who becomes devoted to any of these is on that transcendental level as well. Right? The devotee also. Everyone, all of these are equally important and powerful. So the sound of this conch shell is that sound. It's a transcendental sound of Krishna's names. Now, we have, as an unfortunate consequence, taken the sound of Om in particular to be impersonal, but we don't get an opportunity to mistake that, because Om in this age comes as Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we don't mistake that it is a person, because it is referring to him by his names, Hare Krishna and Rama. It's not names of the formless divine, it's names of the person Krishna, who happens to have a form of light also. Is that clear? Right? So we don't make those in the previous ages, in the Satya Yuga, when these different transcendental sounds, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om and others were there, nobody was going to mix this up, right? Because they had that transcendental ability to understand these things. But in this day and age, unfortunately, it's taken that these are impersonal things. When people think of Om, they think of the light. And they don't think that it's actually Krishna. So with the Maha Mantra, you don't get to mix anything up. It's quite clear. Krishna, Rama, Hare is Radha. Okay, so we'll continue. Okay, text 16 to 18, the last verses today. Sorry, Matri, it's quite a bit. It's okay.
I'll try.
I know.
Ananta Vijayam Raja, Kunti Putra Yudhishthira, Nakula Sahadevascha, Sukhosa Mani Pushpaka.
True. Correct.
Kashyascha Paramesava, Sikhandi Cha Maharatha, Dritsta Yono Viratascha, Satyaki Kaparajita, Draupado Draupadiyascha, Sarvasa Prithivipate, Sobadrascha Mahabahu Sankandano Ritak.
Good.
King Yudhishthir, the son of Kunti, blew his conch shell, the Ananta Vijaya, and Nakula Sahadeva blew the Sanghosha, and Manu Pushpaka, the great archer, the king of Kasi, the great fighter, Sikandi, Drista Dyomna, Virata, the unconquerable Satyaki, Draupada, the sons of Draupadi, and others. O king, such as the mighty armed son of Subhadra, all blew their respective conch shells.
Thank you, Master. So, Sanjaya had he had mentioned when he talked about the blowing of conch shells on the side of the Kauravas, that it just gave Duryodhana joy. And he mentioned that the sound was tumultuous, but you can see that the way he speaks here is very different. In particular, he had said in the previous verse that, he'll say in the next verse, that the sounding of all these conch shells, it shatters the hearts of all the Kauravas. The other sound, it didn't shatter anyone's hearts. It didn't really affect them. It only gave Duryodhana some joy. But these sounds, coming from these very dear devotees of the Lord, it's very powerful. So, basically Prabhupada says in this purport that Sanjaya is tactfully informing Dhritarashtra, that his efforts are going to lead to disaster. Everybody is going to be wiped out in this battle, particularly his own family. And then that's a very sad part, because even the sons who are on the side of the Pandavas, they were also going to be killed. The Pandavas' own sons were killed in all of this. And there's a separate Leela regarding that. We may get into it some other time. But basically, this is the consequence of endeavoring against the Lord. You destroy yourself and everything else around you. So Prabhupada says it's all because of Dhritarashtra, because of just constantly encouraging his sons against the Supreme Lord. Even to the point where, they wanted to arrest the Lord. The Lord went as a peace messenger, and Duryodhana tries to arrest him because he doesn't want to hear anything against him. But this is what happens also in today's world. People have this relative idea of what's good, and they stake lives on it. And there's wars because of this. It's the same thing. It's not necessarily good for the world, so it can't ever be called a dharmic fight. These fights are all based on the false ego. It's all because we think something is good. Whatever we think is coming from our false ego. And that's why it doesn't actually lead to anything good overall. There's always relative good. You'll always find consequences. Think about it. Some of your students of history, look back and see. Everything has a negative consequence. Because it's coming from us. And we simply put our judgment for the 4 defects that we already discussed. It's never correct and perfect and true. So this is actually, it's presaging the future, what's going to happen on this earth, from what happened in the time of the Lord. Text 19 is our last text for today. Sorry, I thought it was 18, but it's 19.
The blowing of these different conch shells became applause, vibrating both in the sky and on the earth. It shattered the heart of the son of Gaura.
Okay, thank you, Master. So now we can see that their hearts were shattered already, and it's only the sounding of the conch shells. The whole battle hasn't even happened yet. So it says a lot about the consequence of their actions and also what's going to happen. And Prabhupada says here that this is due to the Pandavas and their confidence in Lord Krishna. One who takes shelter of the Supreme Lord has nothing to fear, even in the midst of the greatest calamity. It's a nice point for us to close today's reading. So we'll actually see that the verses they follow themes. Like the groups of verses follow themes. That's why I wanted to close with this one, because the theme from the next you'll see it's Arjuna asking Krishna to drive his chariot. So we can close on this theme. And it actually helps us to understand like the chapters of Bhagavad Gita as a whole as well, by following like a group of verses, like the theme of them. Because then if you just have like one sentence per theme, you'll know exactly what
So
that.
it's just punctual.
Yeah, it was the sound and the implications of these. So you could actually summarize this chapter based on its sections in one line, theoretically, each section, and then you'll know exactly what this chapter is about. Right? So Bhagavad Gita has been designed to be remembered. It's very beautiful. It's not just some dialogues and some noble truths and that's it. It's very important. So we wanted to glorify for a few minutes Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. I think everybody knows it was his appearance day on Thursday. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He's next to Srila Prabhupada on our left of Srila Prabhupada. He's Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master. And he was an extraordinary personality. We've been sharing some insights into his history. And he wasn't just born like we are with karma to finish, hopefully, in this life. He appeared because his father wanted a worthy successor to continue the spiritual movement of Lord Chaitanya. The movement had fallen a little bit to the wayside after some of the principal associates of the Lord appeared. So we may ask, why does this happen? But this is the material world. Everything deteriorates. The message doesn't deteriorate, but us following the messages, we deteriorate. Right? Our understanding of it, our application of it, right? The quality of who we are, we can already see, how our lifespans have deteriorated, our attention span. How many of you notice now before you read any article on the internet, it tells you how many minutes it'll take to read it? 2-minute read, 3-minute read. It's bad. It's bad. It's indicating how short our attention spans have become. So because of this, the message doesn't, Krishna says it becomes lost, but it only appears to be lost. The message is eternal. But because of our failings, it falls out of our consciousness, and it needs to be reintroduced. So we need all these powerful personalities. Right? Your Bhagavad Gita will show you the list of your predecessors. You coming in the line of Srila Prabhupada. There's a list of spiritual teachers who have been responsible for making sure that message, every time it fell out of consciousness, it got back in again, right? by their efforts. So I think it's at the end of the introduction. Yeah, whichever page your book has it, on the last page of the introduction, there's a list of teachers in disciplic succession. After the last page, the next page after the last page. So these are all our predecessor acharyas, we call them. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is here's number 31 in this divine line. He actually wrote a poem with all the names of these personalities in it. It's very nice. We can read it sometime. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he came in response to the prayer of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, number 29. Bhaktivinoda Thakur came at a time where the message was particularly lost, if you can say, right? More than at other times. And because of that, he put in a lot of effort, right, to even locate Lord Chaitanya's biography, right, to find authorized copies, Srimad Bhagavatam, other scriptures. Right. There was practically the whole sampradaya had fallen a lot of difficulties. There were people who were pretending to be descendants of the Lord, his teachings. They were misleading people. Impersonalism was rife. He was encountering a lot of difficulties. There were the Sahajiyas that were imitating Krishna and his Leelas, pretending to be the Lord and misleading others. So it was a very bad climate, and you can imagine one Bhaktivinoda Thakur is trying to single-handedly revive this whole movement. A lot, we could say, like how Srila Prabhupada single-handedly started ISKCON in the Western world. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur was doing that in his time, right, in India. So he needed, and he felt that he didn't have anyone amongst his associates or amongst his family members who would be able to continue. And he was already, it's described, 42 years old. So understanding that time was short, he prayed to Lord Jagannath in particular. And he was posted there in Puri. He was a magistrate, so he was being posted for work. So I like the pastime. Lord Jagannath comes in a dream and tells him, I didn't bring you here to practice law. you need to preach my message, Vaishnava Siddhanta. So then Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, I'm getting old, I have to. Bhaktivinoda Thakur set the example for us how to be the ideal householder. A lot of our teachers were renunciants, but he remained in the household life till quite later on. Then he became a Babaji. But he showed us how to be an ideal householder. This was his. We could say, why didn't he just give it up? And who are we going to learn from? Or how to work nicely, how to have a family nicely, he was a pure devotee, but he did all these things. So it's not just like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he never got married, like Bhishma Naishtik Brahmachari. Srila Prabhupada, although he was in the household ashram, he became a sannyasi. This may not be the case for all of us. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he set that example for us to learn from. So he wanted a worthy successor. So Lord Jagannath said, okay, you pray to my energy, Bimala Devi. This is expansion of Lakshmi Devi. Her temple is there in Jagannath Puri. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he prayed because he wasn't praying for just any child. He needed a very special child. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was the answer to that prayer. So when he was born, Bhaktivinoda Thakur called him Bimala Prasad, the mercy of Bimala Devi. Bimala Prasad. So many unusual, divinely unusual things happen. The Brahman thread for a male, it's wrapped around the neck and it goes to one side. His umbilical cord was wrapped like that. And when the astrologer did his chart, he said that he's never seen a chart like this, because astrology is just like the astrologer predicted at the time of Srila Prabhupada's appearance, that this child will cross the ocean and open 108 temples. It can be that accurate. So in the same way, this astrologer could see that there was something extraordinary about this child. And also, they test the vocation of children when usually it's at the grain eating ceremony, I know that, a few months they place them, it's a small child, and they leave a pile of coins and the Bhagavad, and the child will gravitate towards one or the other. They don't make the coins extra shiny. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he chose the Bhagavatam, right? He embraced the Bhagavatam, he said. So his destiny was, so for a lot of people it would be like, my son's going to become a preacher, all is lost. For Bhaktivinoda Thakur, this is the son I prayed for. He's going to continue this succession. Then there was another amazing sign, some of you may have read about it. The Jagannath cart stopped outside the house. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's house was on the main road. Lord Jagannath goes in his Rath Yatra procession down the same main road every year. It's not like us, we change our routes. It was the same main road, and he goes to, it's said, his aunt's house, Gundicha. He's there for 7 days, he comes back. So in front of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's house, the cart stops. And for 3 days, nobody could move it. So Jagannath does this from time to time. He do this during Lord Chaitanya's pastimes as well. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, as a magistrate, he had some privileges. So they brought the child out, they allowed the wife to bring the Bhagavati Devi to take this child up to the Lord. And there, the garland falls from Lord Jagannath onto the child. So we need these signs. We need these signs. It's not just so that we have some nice stories to tell 150 years later, but we need to trust the words of these personalities. Because there are a lot of other words being spoken. That's what he came for. There were a lot of other people who are interpreting the Lord's teachings. Right? So who are you going to listen to, them or him? Right? So the Lord sometimes does these things. Same with Srila Prabhupada. Right? All these wonderful things happened around his appearance, his childhood. All of this was there for a reason. We trust that these persons have been sent, and that's why they have the name Acharya. We follow them. Right? So many wonderful instances in his childhood, in his youth, how extraordinary his intelligence was. He was a genius in maths and astronomy and other things. But all of this was almost an aside to show that when a devotee is pure, all other abilities come with them. They don't have to endeavor for it. He wasn't sitting and studying these books, but he was sitting and studying the devotional literature because that's what he wanted to do. But he just happened to be a genius in everything else. And he refused repeatedly to exploit this genius. We could say, he had the opportunity to be chair for university even though he was a young man, like early 20s, because he knew what his mission was. And so he dedicated himself to preparing for the mission. Now he's already a pure devotee. Why does he need to prepare for it? He's setting the example. They don't just tell us what to do, they do it themselves. Right? That's another thing that you understand an Acharya to be. He lived in his father was a magistrate. They were very well off. Right? He created a little hut for himself and he lived in bare surroundings, right? Sleeping on the floor, bathing outside, getting his own water. This is what he did. It's not to say that he had to do this. Sometimes people say that, that he had to do it. He wasn't poor. He wasn't poor. He chose to do it. This was his purification. And when he was sure of his mission, after he took initiation, he sat in a hut. It said that when the hole in the hut, when it led to the rainwater falling on him, he sat under an umbrella because his focus was chanting. He chanted 1 billion names of the Lord, 300,000 a day over 9 years. That is, he felt, his purification to prepare for the mission. That's when he started the mission. So they're not saying chant Hare Krishna and they're not doing it themselves. Right? He did it in lieu of everything else, sleeping, eating, the whole day just chanting. You calculate how many, right? 16 names on one Hare Krishna mantra times 108. Calculate how many rounds that is if you're chanting 300,000, I forget. Right? But it's basically all consuming. It takes the whole day. You can't do anything else. So he gave up a lucrative career. Right? He gave up the comforts of his home. In modern times, not like how we say it's, maybe Krishna's associates were not so advanced, maybe it's inflated, whatever. His histories are well documented. It's only 150 years old. So after this, he started his extraordinary mission, the Gaudiya Math, right? He basically changed the whole face of spirituality in India. He sent some personalities overseas who tried to spread it also outside of India, but Srila Prabhupada is actually his main successor in that. So we owe so much to him. We'll have some kirtan now, we'll offer flowers. So we usually offer to Srila Prabhupada, but you can offer some to Srila Prabhupada and some to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So sometimes people may ask, we don't offer to Krishna, is this not a bad thing? We don't have a right to approach Krishna. Look at the quality of person Arjuna was, to be an associate of Krishna. Right? We can't compare. We don't even have that focus when we're offering it. What to speak of the offering? There's so many things, so many ways that this can be understood. Right? But Srila Prabhupada, he doesn't think about your deficiencies. He doesn't think if you're praying in the right way, if you're offering in the right way, if the offering is nice. He doesn't consider any of that. He just takes whatever you're offering, and what does he do with it? He offers it to Krishna. And whatever it is, because he offered it to Krishna, what happens?
It's accepted.
Right. So we offer through Srila Prabhupada. Right? We don't jump over the Acharya. We don't get to do that. Right? They've come here out of their special mercy. We've said also before many times, Krishna has to consider your offenses. The demons are always, one of my favorite quotes, Hiranyakashipu in the 7th canto of Bhagavatam. Krishna favors the demigods. God favors the demigods. He's unfair. He doesn't favor anybody. He dishes out equally. Therefore, we also got to get our karma. But the pure devotee, he can just be merciful. Nobody's going to come and tell him, you're just too merciful. Right? That's why we go through the devotee. Krishna has to consider. Still, Krishna has mercy to his devotees, and he says that he's more of a friend to one who's friend to him. But we understand that the mercy becomes more concentrated through the line of teachers, through the devotees. So we offer our petals to Srila Prabhupada, to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and they offer it to Krishna, and then we know our offering has been accepted. Okay. So thank you all so much for your kind attention. Any questions or comments? I'm so sorry we went on a bit today.
It was well discussed. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you very much for last week's Sabbath. We really appreciate all your efforts. We know you went the extra